Hi everyone. My name is Blaine Ashley. I am the founder of The Fizz is Female. The Fizz is Female celebrates female-made, owned, and heavily led sparkling wines from around the world. This evening, we're chatting with Joy Sterling, the CEO of Iron Horse Vineyards. So, hi, Joy.
Hi, I'm so
Thank you for
happy.
joining us.
Oh my goodness, I am honored. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. So we're just going to jump right into it. I want to know about the origins and how Iron Horse came to be.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and it goes back 44 years. We are going to start harvest on Monday, which will be our 44th vintage, amazingly. I don't even understand that. The math doesn't quite work. But it was founded by my parents, who saw Iron Horse in 1976 in a driving rainstorm. And if anybody with us today has been to Iron Horse, you know that the first time you come visit, you feel completely lost. We are way off the beaten path. We had lived in France, which is how we know Rita and her husband, Andre. And my parents got the bug, the wine bug, when we were living in France in the 1960s. And one of the great stories, my father was a Chevalier de Tastevin, and at the restaurant Taillevent, he won the blind tasting, and the International Herald Tribune wrote him up as the American who amazingly bested the French in the blind tasting. And it was because it was a very obscure Cahors, a red wine, that he said he remembered because of the way it scorched down your throat. And he had had it at 9 o'clock in the morning with Alexander Calder in the artist studio in the Loire. And he said, you would never forget that feeling. And but because of that, he said, you know what, this is maybe something we really can do. And they started looking for a vineyard in France. I think luckily that did not come to be, because I think it would have been very difficult for Americans, a very tough row to hoe. But they came back to California, resumed the search, and saw Iron Horse. And I'm not sure anybody else would have seen what they saw. The whole story of Iron Horse is their vision. The vineyards were distressed. The original house on the property, which is now my mother's home, was listing on a foundation of 19th century beer cans. There was no winery. The first thing they did was put in a frost protection system. The UC extension agent said, don't be ridiculous, go east and grow Cabernet like everybody else. It's too cold, too prone to frost. You're going to lose a third of your crop. And so the entire story of Iron Horse is a story of their unbelievable vision.
Yeah, they had an aha moment, sounds like.
Yes, well, it was love at first sight. Love at first sight.
I love that. Tell us about, because Fizz is Female, the sparkling wine focus. Like, how did that come to light, to have such a focus on sparkling wine?
Well, we actually started with still wines. Our first vintage of estate Chardonnay was 1978. Our first vintage of Pinot Noir was 1979, and our first vintage of sparkling wine was 1980. And that came about because friends from France came and tasted a rosé of Pinot Noir and said, this is the base wine for champagne. You need to make champagne. And they said, come to France and we'll show you everything. So we did that. And the first year we made a Blanc de Blanc and a Blanc de Noir, which is called Wedding Cuvée, and a what was the third? And classic, and a Brut, a classic vintage Brut, a traditional. So we made 3 sparkling wines that first vintage. and we really were learning as we went. And it is just it's just kismet that this property is uniquely perfect for making bubbles because of our proximity to the ocean. And that gives us the fog that cools down the vineyard and allows us to make sparkling on the level of finesse and elegance that we can achieve.
And how many cuvées do you have available on average? I feel like
18.
Wow. Does that have something to do with you becoming the CEO, or let's break that down?
Totally. No, I don't think you can have too many cuvées. I mean, if you know, we should have a Wednesday cuvée. I don't know why we don't. And so I'd make a new cuvée at the drop of a hat. And the way we have done that up until recently is through the dosage, the finishing element. Yeah. But now we haven't released them yet, but we're aging single vineyard bubbles from the estate. And that is a major step forward. Our first vintage is 2017, and it is a Blanc de Blanc. It's called Reflection. And it comes from a section of vineyard that is near the reservoir. So of course, the vineyard, that portion of the vineyard reflects in the reservoir. And but we aren't going to release that for another couple of years. But it's really exciting. And being small and family owned, we love having lots of small limited production wines, and then they run out. For example, right now, we are very close to the end of the Summer's Cuvée.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. I was going to buy or look into the package that we're doing, the Fizz Female collaboration package, and I said, you know what? They might be out of that already. Like, that's in the package, because I clicked on the link and it wasn't there. So I was like, I'm assuming you're out of it, if not close, very close.
Oh my gosh, Mary Orlin is on. That's so sweet.
Single vineyard sparkling will also be a vintage.
Yes, hi Joy.
Thank you. We only make vintage.
I'm not on video yet because I just finished working out, so I'm getting dressed, but I'll join when I can in video.
Oh, you sweetheart. I'm so happy. Thank you. But what a great question. But we only make vintage. We only make vintage. For us, that is so essential because, of course, it isn't just that the grapes come from 1 year, it's how long it's aged. And that to us is the key. And that's not even a stylistic issue. That is really a quality question.
Yeah. So taking it back to your footprint, especially in terms of Fizz, but at the vineyard in general, you went to Yale and then you went on to work at ABC. What made you come back to the winery or to the vineyard full force? But also tell us about your experience at Yale and at ABC.
I'm the only person that I know who went to Yale as an act of rebellion. My parents are both Stanford graduates, so it was just unheard of that I would go to Yale. But they were still in Europe at the time, and so in fact it was great because it was closer. While I was in school, I worked at the local newspaper, the New Haven Register, and this is what my job description was. I was a copy boy. And so I would run copy, and I was there the night of the Saturday night massacre when Richard Nixon fired everybody. And I was standing in the teletype room. And in those days, the teletype machines were these giant, they looked like post office boxes, big black machines. And they were just dinging and rattling and bullet and bullet and bullet. And I felt that I was at the center of the universe and wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein combined. That was my goal. And so I embarked on my own trajectory. And fast forward, my last position in the news world was Deputy Bureau Chief for ABC Network in Los Angeles. And I celebrated my 10th anniversary as a newswoman by quitting. And it came because my immediate superior had flown in from New York and had advised me that I was absolutely on track to become just like him. And I went home and cried. I just thought, oh my God, the last thing on earth I want to be is
like him.
That was just the worst possible news. So I quit, and I was in the enviable position of being able to weigh heaven and hell, and amazingly, heaven won, which isn't always the case. But I came home and I waltzed in, kind of like the way on Thanksgiving you walk into the kitchen when the last dish is being dried and offer to help. That was me. So I just came home and they were stuck. And then my brother, so that was 1985. And my brother joined the winery in 1990. And now we have 3 generations living on the property. So we now range from, my mom is 89, and the youngest, my nephew Joe, is 24 or 25, I can't remember. But we all live here, which is just magical.
That's great. So since you've joined the family business and become CEO, what are some of the initiatives you've put in place in addition to expanding the cuvées?
Mainly I have the job of chief taster, but I would say some of the things that I am most proud of are, first of all, the Ocean Reserve is a partnership with National Geographic, and that is just such a huge accomplishment. That came in 2000. That was our 2005 vintage. I became CEO in February 2006, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you. There it is. And with that wine, we dedicated all of our Blanc de Blanc to this project with National Geographic, and we give $4 a bottle to Nat Geo's Ocean Initiative, which helps establish marine protected areas and supports sustainable fishing around the globe. So the production level is about 1,000 cases a year. So the math is pretty easy, but over the vintages, it has exceeded $500,000. So that is a testament to all of our wonderful friends who share this wine with us and are helping save the planet one delicious sip at a time.
Well, why don't you tell us about the wine? Because I know Rita has it open and a couple of other people on here have it open as well. So will you tell us a bit more about the wine and the taste and the inspiration?
Well, first of all, I saw Rita say that she thought it was delicious, and I say hello back to Andre. That is so wonderful. But it is a Blanc de Blanc, and to me, Blanc de Blancs are the most sophisticated of sparkling wines. And I feel that because there is absolutely nothing for the wine to hide behind. Pinot Noir can mask a multitude of sins, but Chardonnay is a purely reflective environment. As we all know what it's like to stand in a dressing room with, the mirrors all around you, that is what Blanc de Blanc is like. You see everything.
The fat mirrors and all the lighting, right? No thanks.
Right. This is like going to buy a bathing suit. Making Blanc de Blanc is like shopping for a bikini.
But this one makes you look amazing. This one makes you look amazing. The value of it being vintage is, as you can see,
those of you that have it in your glass, it has this gorgeous, diffuse, constant stream of tiny, tiny bubbles. And that's what you get from longer time on tirage. And I'm not going to take you to the outer reaches of my knowledge of the science behind the bubbles, but the longer the wine ages on the yeast in the bottle, the smaller the bubbles. And what's happening is as the yeast breaks down, just like aging Chardonnay in a barrel, you get that leesy, yeasty quality. But as they break down, the yeast cells emit amino or fatty acids that coat the bubbles. So when they drop down to the bottom of the glass and shoot back up, they don't glom together. They stay separate. And you just get a totally different mouthfeel because of the tiny bubbles. That's where the elegance and the finesse comes in. The bubbles don't attack you. And for my money, when you're drinking top of the line bubbles, you should not even have to swallow. It should just effervesce away in your mouth. And I do have a fantasy of explaining that to the highway patrolman. Officer, I swear I did not swallow. It just effervesced away in my mouth. I don't know. I cannot explain it.
That's great.
But one of the things that's interesting is very few people think of drinking a Blanc de, or thinking of drinking a Chardonnay, let's say, with a steak.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely drink a Blanc de Blanc bubbly with a steak. And I tell you what, I like to drink it even in a Burgundy glass. You get a bath of bubbles down your throat, and it just makes me feel like I'm James Bond, which is a feeling I strive for every day.
But you also had it today with your, yeah, I wonder what Rita's pairing this with tonight, because she's such a food maven. Rita, why don't you type that in the chat? But today you had poke, ahi poke, and a nice salad and chocolate ice cream with your with your Ocean Reserve. So that, you know, it works with both. It goes both ways. Since we're onto the innuendos right now, it goes both ways.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah, I had lunch with my mother, and we had poke and Blanc de Blanc. And Rita, Mommy and I were talking about you and Andre because I told her we were going to see each other today.
Yes.
So
Please give her a huge hug for me.
You felt that.
I'm actually surprised that I would think that Rita would have ordered the uni to go with this Blanc de Blanc.
Right now, I'm on the charcuterie. So how's that?
Oh yeah, that works.
Wagyu bresaola. There we go.
Yes, I love that.
I love that.
So Joy, are you an ocean lover? Are you into, I mean, obviously you have your hearts with the ocean to some capacity. Do you do any water sports, any ocean activities?
I'm a swimmer. I'm part fish. I love to swim. But the reason we chose the ocean was because the ocean is critical to our microclimate.
Yes.
And so taking care of the ocean is just essential for what we do. As I said, it is the engine of the fog, which is a defining element of our vineyard. The fog comes to us from the south, and where we are, which is a very special growing area called Green Valley, it is the first place where the fog comes in through the Petaluma Gap and the last place where it dissipates. This time of year, Sonoma County and fog pretty much go together.
Yeah. Well, we had a conversation before this, and you know how much of an ocean lover I am, being from Hawaii, and also now being quarantined in Hilton Head. But I am so happy to try this wine, and it's excellent. So moving on, speaking of Valley, you have had quite the adventurous wanderlust in your lifetime thus far. And you have, what was it, ran the White River the Biobío Valley. What did you do in Biobío Valley? You've been to Biobío
Yeah,
Valley.
I went whitewater rafting on the Biobío, which is now dammed,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but that was pretty wild. I've been whitewater rafting on the Yangtze, hiking in Tibet, and
You've
my
climbed Mount
most
Kilimanjaro.
I climbed Kilimanjaro, and most recently went to Uganda to see the mountain gorillas, which was just fantastic. It's sort of strange being in an era of no travel.
Totally.
Very odd, very odd. But I have, as a result of that, I have returned to reading, which is a form of travel, and you can go very far with a book.
And hey, you could come up with like 20 new cuvées of places you want to go or have been.
There you go. I have all the time in the world to make new cuvées.
more labels. Brenda is asking if you've experienced, have you experienced a loss of fog from global warming that I hear has changed some of the biosystems in San Francisco?
Well, we see some real signs here. First, our vintages start earlier. The whole calendar year is earlier. As I said, we're going to start on Monday. That's not the earliest it's been. The earliest we harvested was 2015. We started on August 4th. Last year was about the 12th, I think. So we're almost in line with that. But it used to be that we didn't start until the end of August for sparkling. So that's a pretty dramatic. Now, everything starts early. Bud break is early. Flowering is early. So it doesn't really, the grapes don't care what the calendar says. It only has to do with how the growing season goes. And today is just an absolutely perfect model day. And we believe that 2020 has the potential of being our finest vintage ever, which is already amazing. But one of the reasons why is that we think it has to do with the clean air as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that is a silver lining.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. If anything, let it be a gorgeous, gorgeous vintage.
You're one of the first people that have said that on, I mean, you are the first person that said that on one of these chats or Insta Lives I've done.
Well, we're seeing it in our flowers. We're seeing it in our flowers that the
oh no, you're frozen, Joy. Oh, you're good.
Oh no?
No, you're good. You're back.
Okay, good. I just must have been too much. But we see it in our flowers. We see it in our.
Oh, you're frozen again.
Everything is just so incredibly gorgeous. There's no reason to think that it won't translate directly into the grapes in exactly the same way, in that intensity, in that abundance, and just this, it just is so, it's so happy. So happy.
Yeah. Ooh. So Joy, I'm trying to get you back. Let's see. Hi. So Mary has a question for you. How do you change the public perception that sparkling wine is only for celebration or special occasions? Champagne is struggling, and especially because of COVID. How do you convince people should drink bubbly during the week for lunch, dinner, not just brunch? And she says, I don't need convincing, but how do you change the mindset?
Well, I think that the best way to lead is by example.
Yes, totally. I agree.
I think that that's the best way, and we try to give people other ideas of what they can celebrate. So, for example, we send out an email for every full moon. If you sign up for our newsletter, you can you'll get an email from us talking about the full moon. So we just sent one on Monday for the full moon, which in August was the sturgeon moon. So you're going to learn about the moons, number one. But also, we just think that's a really good reason to pop bubbles. And we're just trying very assiduously to show all the different situations. When you come here to Iron Horse, I think the big message that we impart is that you can enjoy the highest quality sparkling in the most relaxed setting.
Yeah.
And that is what I think is very, very important. And then I'm sure everybody on this call today, I mean, I am lovingly known in the family as a bubblehead, and I am just completely fine with that.
Totally. Rita is asking if is this a biodynamic practice?
Drinking by the light of the full moon, yes, but not the winemaking. So no, we're in terms of our farming practices, we are certified sustainable. And that is something we feel very strongly about. We think many people think of sustainability as being a stepping stone. You know, first you're sustainable, then you're organic, and then you become biodynamic. We feel that sustainability is so much bigger than that because it involves what we do in the vineyard, but also all of our practices in the winery, in our homes, in our community, everything. And that basically the bottom line is that we are putting back in more than we take out. That's the UC Davis definition of sustainability, and that's what we ascribe to.
So Brenda has a great question, but before I get to that, I would like to talk a bit about the Brut X, which I'm drinking and is excellent. So the Brut X, which Joy says is extraordinarily dry. So please tell us about this cuvee and the inspiration.
Well, X is the driest of our bubblies, and yes, the X stands for extraordinarily dry. And this particular vintage does have 0.02 residual sugar, so very, very low. Very often, no residual sugar at all. It does have dosage, the finishing element, but usually that dosage is composed purely of wine with no sugar added, which was a big learning for me. I thought no dosage meant no dosage, but finishing element. And in fact, the dosage in the X is the most complex. In other words, has the most different elements in it than any of the other cuvées. The difference is that it just doesn't have the sugar. It also is an older vintage. This is 2014. And so you should really feel that and have that extra creaminess because of the longer time entourage.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And do you consider yourself kind of a bit ahead of the curve in terms of like California sparkling and unveiling this low of a dosage and low residual sugar bubbly wine?
I do, and I think interestingly enough, all of our sparkling wines over time have become drier and drier and drier and drier. One funny story about the X is that we started off calling it Ultra Brut, which was the name I loved, until we got a very polite letter from the attorneys from Laurent Perrier asking us to please cease
No
and desist.
way.
I was like,
Oh,
shoot, no one in America's ever heard of Ultra Brut. Come on. But all right. So we went to X, and it turns out, and now of course, X just feels like a much, much, much better name on so many levels, because, you know, it means, I can never remember, does it mean, and X marks the spot. But also, I always think of Madame X, the portrait made by John Sing in New York City, the Frick Museum, and she was, you know, just this gorgeous pale white skin.
ooh, you're Joy. Less arm talk, more face talk, because you're Italian ways, and you're not Italian, I don't think, are freezing you sometimes. So I'm going to go back to Brenda's question if I can get it, or I'm just going to let you unmute. But Brenda, before you do unmute and ask the question, I just want to say that I have a feeling that Joy definitely understands marketing, unlike so many sparkling wine producers, because it's obvious. I mean, the Ocean Reserve, the Brut X, it's all so incredible. So it's very clear that you understand the market to sell approach, but that it has a very authentic motive behind it. And I commend you for that. Because,
thank you.
yes, beautiful job. But Brenda, if you don't mind asking your question.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Joy, it's lovely to meet you. I will confess I'm aware of your other experiences in the broadband world in California. And questions came up regarding marketing. What I'm wondering is, what innovations does internet marketing and all of this work from home, it's stay-at-home philosophies bring to you as a wine marketer? What more can you do, especially given your situation of being in a rural area with some apparently network challenges?
Well, Brenda, first of all, great to meet you. Thank you so much. And broadband is one of my passion issues. Outside of the winery, I am an activist for broadband equity, clearly in my own self-interest. But we changed our business completely beginning in 2009 as a result of the Great Recession, and flip-flopped from making our sales primarily through our wholesalers, so through distributors, to the restaurants and the retailers through the traditional three-tier system, to going consumer direct. So we now, amazingly, last year, we sold 90-some-odd% of our wine consumer direct. This year, with the pandemic, it's going to be just about 100%. And so, very fortunately, we were already set up to go in that direction. And we have now really pushed that. First thing I do in the morning, my first job is social media. And my last job at the end of the day is social media. And then in the middle of the afternoon, it's social media. But I am a big believer. I am a big believer, and I actually love that we can communicate. And I appreciate so much, you know, that what we do is so authentic. You know, there is really no marketing here. All we're doing is telling the story, and sharing our life. But I feel very, very strongly that if you can become president of the United States through social media, then clearly I should be able to sell a case of wine.
I much prefer the wine.
There you go. So Anna, I'm not positive on your question. So you said, when aren't you drinking them?
No, when you
When-
are
Sorry.
drinking. So if you're not drinking your wines right after they're made, which there's no reason not to, but how long would you have you aged them? And,
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. We had a little glitch in there. So
that's okay.
how long would I?
Do you age these bubbles? This Ocean's Reserve, say 2016. How long would
Age.
wait till you say that that's?
Oh my God.
Now.
First of all, I am a major fan of aged bubbles. I had a bottle of 2001 Blanc de Blanc. So before we were making Ocean Reserve, and this was just 4 weeks ago, and it was amazing. It was amazing. In a world that does not care, we make wines to age. And I forget what the statistic is. 90% of all wine is consumed the day it is purchased. But it is a serious point of pride that they do hold up. It really is. And they do evolve, and they become, in my taste, so different and superior. You trade off that freshness for, number one, more weight, more like a nuttiness in the wine. But the inherent brightness that becomes, it comes from our cool climate, keeps that together, and it has still a youthfulness, a brightness to it that continues even after long aging. On Friday night, I had a 2013 Classic Vintage Brut. Now that's only 3 years on the cork, which is not asking very much for an Iron Horse bubbly, and just wonderful. So I'm a big fan. Now not everybody is. My brother prefers freshly disgorged, so that's his taste. And then I know people who decant their sparkling wine, which is a little weird, but oh well.
Rita's having a freak out moment. Yeah.
Because winemaker, they go through such trouble and work and workmanship and artistry and all that to produce those beautiful bubbles, and then you're gonna like, no.
I know. I'm with you 1,000%.
Yeah.
But, and it also, yes, you're dissipating the bubbles, which is a problem for me, because as you say, Rita, we work so hard to get the bubbles in there. But then beyond that, when you knock down the bubbles, you also are changing the acid balance in the wine.
Yeah.
You're making it sweeter. And so you're definitely changing the wine when you do that.
Well, I think that we should get on to the third wine, because I know people have questions for you, so we want to get to that. So in the package that we did together, we also have the Summer's Cuvée, the 2016 Summer's Cuvée. And I already opened it, guys. So on Sunday, I've already had a whole bottle before this chat. No, I'm kidding. On Sunday, we had a dinner party. I'm down in Hilton Head with my family, quarantining. I'm New York based typically. And we did a classic Southern shrimp boil. And how could I not open this with that? It just seemed like the perfect pairing. So it was very well received. Everyone loved it. And I would love for you to tell us about this. This is a very limited edition annual cuvee that you do, right?
Well, this really shows our marketing genius, because we are so brilliant that we have a Summer's Cuvée. On the autumnal equinox, we'll release something called Harvest Moon. Then we have Winter's Cuvée, and then we have Spring Rosé. So we are really brilliant when it comes to I love to say Iron Horses for all seasons. And these special seasonal bubbles are very limited. They're 400 cases. Yeah. And the lion's share goes into our wine club shipment. And then after that, you're in a foot race with my family and me to drink it up. but they are distinctive. They are not always the same every year. We do not, in these wines or any of our wines, while they have personalities that we strive for, we do not believe in recipe winemaking. We feel very strongly that each of our cuvées has to be evaluated based on the vintage at hand and making the best wine of that vintage. So if we did something one way one year, that does not mean we're going to do it that way the next year. But we do try for the summer's cuvée to make something that is like summer, and that would go with shrimp boil or lobster rolls or peaches, or for us in California, our summer national dish, if you will, is salmon right off the coast here, 13 miles that away. So we are thinking in those terms of, and this was one that we really want. We want for it to bring a very big smile to your face, and it's made for long days and lingering in the garden at twilight and experiences like that are summer. And also, I might say, perfect wine for dropping berries in the glass.
I could totally see that. It says on the back, perfect for celebrating long days and starry nights. Only 400 cases produced. Get yours while it's hot. And Rita says with Umi too. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Umi. Umi is a champagne sommelier in New York. So I had a little slip up there. Yeah, no, definitely. And on that note, everyone, this is Rita Jamay. So Rita is the owner of La Caravelle Champagne, and she also was a owner of La Caravelle Restaurant in New York, and they're about to have their would-be 60th anniversary. And Rita actually connected me with Joy to do one of these business email Zooms together. So thank you for that. But I would love to talk about one of your favorite experiences, Joy, at La Caravelle. One of your favorite food experiences.
Oh my gosh.
Like, let's go with bubbles, of course.
Well, going to La Caravelle was always such an amazing, beautiful, exquisite experience. And it was one where you just felt like you were a lady. And it was always such a pleasure. I know it's not the fashion these days. Very few people get dressed, but when we went to La Caravelle as a family, we would dress, and it was always for us a magnificent occasion. And I love following Rita on social media because I'm seeing her posts about the anniversary and the artwork, which was so gorgeous, and the food, everything just so exquisite. But most of all, I would say it is the personal relationship, the friendship, the warmth, the graciousness of the place and the people.
Thank you.
And then what is your favorite, just a couple of fun questions before we open it up to everyone for like chit-chatting and Q&A. What is your favorite sparkling wine and food pairing? You have to pick one.
Well, thank you for that easy setup. We make one called Joy, so heck.
There you go.
I know. Like that.
I'm gonna have to order the Joy because so far so good.
The Joy is first of all, it's Joy ! So it's emphatic joy. It is much better than I. That's number one. Number two, it only comes in Magnum, which of course is the optimum size for bubbles. And number three, the current vintage is 2005, and so aged 12 to 13 years entourage. And So for all those reasons, it is my favorite.
And then for the wedding cuvee, which was a pretty inaugural cuvee for you all, I imagine that, what have you been doing with the wedding cuvee since COVID? Have you done any like Zoom weddings? Have you done any Zoom bachelorette parties, stuff like that? Like it's becoming kind of a thing, you know?
Well, I'm waiting for you to do that. Thank you. Please.
So we talked
Please.
about it. We have talked about it. You know, so my best friend, actually, the reason I'm even where I am is I was going to my best friend's wedding in San Diego and stopping to see my parents in Hilton Head. They just moved here in September from Hawaii. And so I was making my way west and she canceled her wedding. So you're definitely going to be part of her festivities, whatever they are, virtual or physical, with your wedding cuvee. I'll tell you that right now. I'm in charge of wine. But we need to put that out there, everyone. It's the universe. They've got this wedding cuvee. And so people that are doing their little like 5-person weddings or their virtual weddings.
Well, one of the things that we have found is, even though weddings being canceled or postponed is probably the better word, those dates are still important. And wedding cuvee is the bubbly that we're best known for. It is the most romantic of our sparkling wines. It's our Blanc de Noir. It is dangerously easy to drink. Dangerous. And it does contain a known aphrodisiac. Do you know what that is?
Bubbles?
Don't think too hard. Alcohol.
Alcohol.
Anyway.
Mary got engaged to her wedding cuvee.
People are ordering it, as it is probably the most popular wine that people order online, and they gift it for people for either now postponed weddings or anniversaries, any romantic occasion.
Right.
And then I also like to tell my young friends, you know, don't be afraid of wedding cuvee. You can use it just to lead someone on. It's okay.
I love it. And then what about the rainbow cuvee? Because I wanted to try that as well. Do you have any more of that?
No, we're now sold out of rainbow. I'm sorry to say. Rainbow is another wine that I am just so proud of. I'm trying to think of how many vintages we've had of that now. I don't think it's quite 10, but we're getting there. And it is our toast to diversity, and love is love. And it also does have a double meaning, because this place, particularly in March, is absolutely the best rainbow viewing site on the planet. I would put it up against Hawaii, honestly, for rainbow sightings.
I'll take you up on that. We'll have a rainbow competition the next time I'm home.
Okay, good. That's excellent. I'm very happy.
The one thing I know you all have on us is wine. There's no good wine in Hawaii unless it's being obviously imported. But yeah, no, not a thing.
I saw a question about pink wine.
Yes.
In the fall, we will have a Brut Rosé LD, a very small amount of that. It'll be vintage 2012, and that is exquisite. And then in the spring, we'll have the spring rosé.
Great. All right. Well, I think that I'm going to go ahead and or let everyone unmute themselves, and we'll just chat for a little bit. You have some time, maybe like 5-10 minutes? You're good? Great.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to unmute, and if anyone wants to ask me questions, you can just kind of like hang and.
I have to chime in here because I have to go at 7 o'clock, but I just wrote my little note in there in case you were continuing it. It's